What's up everybody, welcome back to Out Reptiles. My name is Garrett Hartle. In today's video, I want to explain to you how to go about figuring out where you're gonna buy your next Dwarf or Superdwarf Reticulated Python from. The most important thing when you go to buy a Dwarf or Superdwarf Reticulated Python, these things are like purebred dogs. So the bloodline is everything, okay? If you're gonna get a dog, let's say I get a chocolate lab. I can buy a brown dog out of a box in front of Walmart and say, yeah, it was like a chocolate lab. And if I grow it up, I keep it as a pet, it'd probably make a good pet, depending on how I work with it and stuff. If I wanna breed that chocolate lab, I can say, you know, I bought the parents as a chocolate lab from somebody that seemed like a nice guy, and maybe the dog's worth a couple $100, and some people might buy it from me if they have looser standards on what they're trying to get into. Or I can go get that chocolate lab and I can say, yes, this is the great-great-grand baby of the Russian Tsar's bird dog champion, and it's won all kinds of AKC titles. Now all of a sudden, everybody wants to buy them at whatever price I want to offer. It's not all about the money though with Dwarf and Superdwarf. See, this is a young adult animal. He's in the breeding program now. He has a little bit of growing left to do, but he's almost full size. Pretty ridiculously small, and he's a pure Kalatoa. And you are buying an animal, if I sell you this as a Superdwarf, it could be like this, or it could be up to the largest snake on the planet. So to say, oh yeah, it's somewhere in between there, that's really pretty big range. So obviously that's gonna be the first thing. You don't wanna end up with a snake that you are not prepared to handle, or that's gonna outgrow you because it's gonna get this big around and 200 pounds and you thought you were getting a lot smaller. That's not good for you, that's not good for the snake, it's not good for your pocketbook because you're paying for something that wasn't actually there. But at least as important, and if you're like a real enthusiast, or you know, there's another word for that, you guys, we call them nerds. If you're a super nerd like me, there's a lot that you're missing if you're missing out on the bloodline. In order to get a good bloodline, you need to have your animals from a breeder who's passionate about the bloodlines that they're working for. This is why I would very much encourage you to research some breeders, figure out who are some really good ones with the type of Dwarf or Superdwarf Retic you're working with, find some customers of theirs, get a few reviews, and figure out the bloodlines. You might not know this when you're buying the snake, but when you buy into these kind of elite bloodlines with all this history and knowledge behind them, there's a huge community of people that really want to actively engage with you and your snake. When you get your first Dwarf or Superdwarf Retic and you post that on a social media group somewhere, people are gonna say, wow, that's really beautiful. Who did you get it from? Oh, that's so nice. Was that from the clutch that hatched in February last year? I have one of those too. I think our snake might be brothers. And you'll find that you have so much in common going back to the different bloodlines of the animals, because those of us who are really into it, we cherish that stuff. We remember those things. There are certain animals from bloodlines that got us into snakes when we were first getting into them, and we would love to share passionately that joy of keeping with you guys. That's not something you want to miss out on. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about breeders who are able to get into the bloodlines. All right, so here's a really cool snake. This is an animal that we hatched last year, so summer of 2019, which means now she's about a year, a little over a year and a half old. What a beautiful animal. Totally biased because I bred it myself. She was one of my holdbacks. But this is a high percentage Superdwarf. She's 62.5% Kalatoa, and she is a platinum marble. Now this girl also has a little bit of Slayer in her. Let me see. Her grandpa was pure, that'd be 25, she's 12.5% Slayer. The reason I can calculate that is because I just had to calculate back through a few generations of breedings and track it down. See, now this animal here is platinum and marble, okay? She's also a Poshead Anery. Her dad was a 75% Kalatoa, platinum, 100% Het Anery, who was originally bred by Travis Kubis. Those of you guys who've been watching Superdwarfs for a while might have heard his name before. He really was the founder of a majority of the really nice Kalatoa stuff that we enjoy in captivity today. Now, that animal was owned by Aaron Metcalf, who originally was like the kid down the street who would come and clean Travis's cages. And that animal was his very first Superdwarf Reticulated Python. I remember hearing the stories of Aaron growing up with that snake. He's got all kinds of pictures from it. And I picked the snake up from Aaron. So that was really fun to have that male. Now, on the mom's side, his mother was a 50% Superdwarf, 25% Slayer, also bred by Travis Kubis, but this time I bought her from him directly. Her mom was 100% pure Kalatoa female from some of the first Kalatoas that were imported into the country back in the day. So I was really excited to have an animal off of some of the original first like known Kalatoa Island animals. Now her dad is what really kills it for me. Her dad was one of the original marbles imported in the country. He was 50% Slayer Island. Now the Slayers have an amazing black and gold pattern on them, and that animal was bred by Karsten Wollner in Germany. It's Fila Retics. You gotta look it up, F-I-L-A retic.com. He has some of the most amazing animals. He not only did he bring in like a whole bunch of like wild caught morphs and really developed a lot of the morphs that we have today. Even if he wasn't the first one to develop them, he developed his own line. But he also was a huge locality nut, so obviously I get along with him great. And I've always wanted a retic of his, but was never able to line it up to do the import myself. So when I heard that Travis was buying animals from Karsten and that marble was from one of the original marbles coming out of Indonesia, bred to a pure Slayer animal, and he took that was probably one of the most chaotic, beautiful marbles I've ever seen, and breeding it into a pure Kalatoa from his own bloodline that was a head anery, I had to have her. That was the bloodline that I wanted. And by running her back to a 75% Kalatoa Platinum head anery from an outcrossed but same anery bloodline of Travis's to make these animals, it just comes full circle. Just in the way that I told you, actually she's 12.5% Slayer. It's because her mom is 25% Slayer, because her dad was 50% Slayer, the one bred by Karsten, from 100% pure Slayer that Karsten owned and bred to one of the original imported marbles. So when I look at this animal, I see so much more than a pretty face. Packed inside of this beautiful animal are decades of knowledge about some of the most influential reticulated python breeders of my life. And that is how you buy a Superdwarf. If you want to know a little bit more about these guys' islands and origins, you need to check out this video right here.